go for a little ride. I didn't even think to see if it starts, to be honest. This ride might be over quicker than I thought. Oh, there we go. Okay. Hello out there. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel for the last instalment of the 955. Oh, where am I? There I am. The last instalment of the 955i Triumph Tiger video. This is the roundup video from a series of the 955 videos that seems to have taken all year to do, but with one thing and the other and life getting in the way, things just take a bit longer, but that's not a problem. So I wanted to do a roundup video on, was this project worth it? So you want to do a project bike too? Well, let's have a little chat about this, because sometimes it's not quite as clear cut and easy as you might think. Picking the right cheap bike depends on a lot of factors that you might not initially be aware of. You need to know a little bit about the bike itself. How has it been looked after? How has it been ridden? Was it used all year round? Was it just a summer bike? Has it been sitting in the back of a garage, in a chicken shed, whatever? The history of the bike is often unknown, so it's very difficult to get any background information on the actual usage of the bike up until that point that you want to buy it. The amount of neglect or love that a bike has received will definitely dictate how your project will go, because obviously if it's been well looked after, then you're going to have a lot more ease in the servicing than something that's been seriously neglected and everything just goes wrong. And let me tell you that if you pick up a project bike that you know nothing about its previous life, you are going to be in for some surprises, and they're not all good. Service history, non-existent, so it's a bit of a Russian roulette game. You can only see what you can see on the surface. In-depth problems will either rear their ugly heads whilst you're working, or if you're really unlucky, post-project. So if you have post-project problems, these are the problems that rear their ugly heads once you've finished the project. So you've decided you want to have a go at some of this project stuff. Where you're going to pick yourself up a bike. Now this depends on where you are in the world. Every country has its own internet portals, forums, platforms, sales areas for picking up bikes. eBay is a classic one because that is also international, but each country has its own version of sort of online bike and sales. What we all have is the Facebook Marketplace. It seems to be a bit of an en masse of, well, let's just say dubious sellers. So be wary about where you buy from, and never buy a bike without seeing it first. Even if it's an absolute howler, at least if you've seen it first, you can check things like the address on the paperwork. Is it the same as the address that you're standing at? You know, so be careful about what you're buying. So before you actually start doing a project bike, like this Triumph 955i, which I picked up, you might want to do some internet research beforehand, just to sort of pick up on some typical problems that these bikes may have. This will also give you an insight as to possibly costs of specific repairs, how difficult repairs are, and you can judge yourself then if you're going to be ready to take on that specific project, if it's something that's going to take you in over your head as far as your mechanic skills are concerned, or even cost. Some things are a bottomless money pit, if you like. So just basically be clever about what you're doing. Check out you know, the typical faults, costs, and then you'll be on the right road. to picking up the right project. So let's specifically talk about this Triumph 955 which I picked up. How did it come to me? Well, usually every winter, over the winter months when I'm not riding, I do like to pick up some project. For a few years, and this is reflected in my YouTube channel, I worked on my GPZ 600, which has actually been under a cover for the last couple of years, so I've had nothing to work on. And this particular 955i, it wasn't something I was looking for. It was offered to me by a friend who bought it a couple of years back, and he'd been having some problems with it. And what happened was, about a year after he bought it, the bike developed some problems. It was guzzling coolant, so we had a suspected cylinder head gasket problem, and I think a couple of other bits and bobs. And at the end of the day, he just deregistered it, put it in his garage, and it was sitting there taking up space. And he knew that that was sort of my thing. I do like a challenge, so he offered it to me for an extremely reasonable price, and I do mean cheap. And that's how the bike swapped its ownership from my friend to myself, and then he even delivered it for me, so that was a bonus. And that's how this Triumph ended up in my garage. So I set myself a budget, which was a budget on top of the bike cost, and I set myself a budget of €1,000 to get this bike back on the road safely, roadworthy tested. I wasn't sure at the time if I was going to sell it or keep it, but if I was going to sell it, I wanted to sell something that was mechanically sound, didn't look too bad, and had a recognised technical roadworthy test too. So €1,000 was my limit, and after I bought the bike, off I set. Once the bike was in my garage, the first thing I do is take some sort of inventory of what I have. So I don't just accept the fact that it has, in this case, the cylinder head problem, which the previous owner told me about. I want to know what I'm delving into, because it's nothing more frustrating than doing work and having to stop because you found a problem that you don't have parts for, which can happen anyway. But there are obvious things that you can look at in the servicing side of things. So here I have a list of the things that actually I found before I started working. Some other things probably came apparent once I was working on the bike, but these are the things that I knew I had to deal with before I started. So I had the cylinder head gasket, the tyres were worn. Of course I'm mentioning this because tyres are expensive. I mean, the two tyres, that's €300. That's €300 you have to put into the bike, and you don't even know what the outcome is. So when you're spending that amount of money on spare parts, you really have to be sure about getting this bike finished. You don't want to be sinking money into something at the end of the day you just sell as a non-finished project. How many non-runners or non-finished projects do you see online? Always with the title, don't have time to finish it. They usually just run out of money or can't do it. So anyway, so cylinder head, tyres, brake pads all round were all worn. Brake fluid contamination. 2 out of 4 engine bolts missing. Well, one was missing completely, and the other one was, the bolt was in, but the nut wasn't on the other side, and the only reason it didn't fall out was because the bolt head was resting up the inside of a fairing part or something. The cockpit lights. So in this particular case, I thought I didn't have a problem with the MIL light, or the engine management system. Turns out that the light had blown on that. When I put a new bulb in, the light came on and there was some fault code stored in there. Nothing serious, but on a bike like this, then you're going to need software. You're going to need an OBD2 diagnostics plug to get into the fault codes, check what they are, delete them when necessary. Yeah, so I also had the wrong rear shock fitted. Yeah, how did I find that out? That was a story for itself. Come back to that in a minute. And then the usual things, warm chains and sprockets. So you notice now we're picking up, even the service costs are digging into that £1,000 budget. You also have to take into account, which I did, the cost of the test at the end. The test at the end was almost, I think, €100 to have the roadworthiness test done. And it paid off. At the end of the day, I managed to get this bike running, tested, safely, fixed. Well, it was just a touch over €1,000 is what I paid for everything. But I also put on I did a lot of stuff extra to it, some nice to haves. First of all, it looked awful, so I spray painted it. I did some spray painting. This is how it worked out. This is what it looked like. It came to me as an olive green. Didn't like it very much, and it was also done badly as well. It was like somebody had painted it with a spoon. And so I did some spray painting in the garage. The colour scheme that I went for was a nice anthracite black and like a copper. Got some decals, did some painting, and then we also had some nice to haves. We put some new mirrors on. The old ones were rusted, really rusted. We put some original handguards on, because I think an adventure bike's got to have handguards, and I did put some heated grips on too, and I think heated grips with handguards is a good option. Then we put on some small bags on the pannier carriers, because I don't want the panniers on all the time. So a couple of little bags just to carry some bits and pieces that you might need. And once that was finished, the bike had an absolute transformation. After the roadworthiness test, I did actually register the bike, put a license plate on it, got it registered, and then I went and spent 5 or 6 weeks riding it to work, taking it out now and again after work, because I wanted to see if there were any post-project problems. So that's it, basically. That is the story of this Triumph bike. Was it a bargain? Was it a money pit? It's only a money pit if you don't watch your costs. You have to make a plan before you start, a bit of research before you start. Is this doable with the tools and the resources that I have, and how much am I going to have to spend on spare parts? The last thing for me to do now is take it out for a test ride. I'm going to take you with me. Let's go for a little ride. I didn't even think to see if it starts, to be honest. This ride might be over quicker than I thought. Oh, there we go. Now, it took me about 3 or 4 months to do this bike. But I wasn't on a time schedule or anything. It was a case of just get it done when it was done. And if some of you watch my videos, you will appreciate the troubles I had with the repair of the engine cylinder gasket. Now, on these engines, you are supposed to remove the cylinder liners from the block to reseal them. Now, I couldn't get them out, so I had to take a bit of a gamble, and I left them in. So I was hoping that when the engine was put back together, that it would all work properly. And I suppose I got lucky, because as it happens, it did work. The liners were still sealed. I didn't have to just concentrate on the traffic, sorry. The liners were sealed, and I didn't lose any coolant. And as soon as I started the engine up after the repair, everything worked absolutely fine. So here we are in lovely Gütersloh, North Germany, where I live, on this lovely little Tiger. And I have to admit, the engine does run really sweet. It's got 106 brake horsepower, but it has this Sebring twister exhaust pipe on it, which probably does nothing for the power, but it does make it sound very nice, I have to admit. It's not loud, but it's got like a really nice sort of, like a nice sporty sound to it. So I have to behave myself here because, hey, get out of the way, bird, because we are actually going to ride past the main police station. So no wheelies here, well, not that I'd want to or could do on this bike anyway. Now I fitted a one of these outdoor phones to the bike because at the moment it's just got the cockpit on, but I can put my navigation on, so we've also given it a bit of a blast up until the brought it up into date, into a modern world. So what have we done? Well, I've put some heated grips on, which are absolutely fantastic because, you know, a lot of the heated grips have like a turn dial, a switch somewhere. Now this bike does actually come with heated grips, and the button is over here, but this bike didn't have any. That's just why there's no button there. So I've added these heated grips, which have this little very discreet sliding adjuster here. So it's off at the moment. If I want to turn the heating on, just push that up. It's got 4 settings and they're absolutely fantastic. Then I added this USB power unit, which has a normal USB-A and a USB-C, so you can run what you want to run. So 6 gear, which pulls really, really well, to be honest, and there's no vibration. You can sit on here, it's got a nice comfortable seat. The seat height, by the way, is about, I believe, 890 millimeters, and it's also height adjustable, so I can go up another 3, so it is something for big people. Just going past a prison to our left. This is absolutely a lovely bike to ride, very, very smooth. I could imagine going long distances on this, to be honest, because of the riding position. You're very upright, good hand position, there's no weight on the wrists. I mean, I'm literally just hanging on the bars here. Nice leg position. I'll have to admit, working on this bike was actually a bit more challenging than working on my Kawasaki's or Suzuki's that I've had so far. I'm not saying that all Triumphs are probably going to be difficult. I've worked on a Speed Triple from a mate of mine, and that wasn't too bad. It's very accessible. But this massive tank is so big, it's really cumbersome to get off to do any work. And there's one thing I didn't actually do to this bike. The tank has quick release couplings to the fuel injection rail, the fuel lines, and this one doesn't. They are renowned to break, and somebody didn't replace them. They just put the fuel hose straight onto the tank with garden hose clamps. So if I want to take the tank off, I have to empty it first, otherwise I lose all my fuel. I was thinking about putting some quick release couplings on, but seeing as I'm going to probably sell the bike, and they are another £100 or €100 for a set, I've decided against it. It works as okay as it is. You haven't got to take the tank off every week, so that's not a problem. So what do you think of this area, guys? It's lovely here, isn't it? This is a back road between 2 little villages that I live on. So If you're wondering how a British guy ends up in Germany, by the way, this town that I live in, Gütersloh, is an ex-army garrison. Sorry, I've just been put off a little bit by this new road surface. This wasn't here a week ago. So I don't know when they did this. So it has good pickup. Quite enjoy it. I do like this. It's like you're driving a tractor that runs like a Porsche. Well, maybe not a Porsche, but it certainly goes quicker and handles niftier and nimbler than it looks. It looks like a big, heavy old adventure bike, but it's not really. It's actually a nice, good bike to ride around on. Yeah, this is all new, this, look, so I have to be careful because there's a lot of gravel on the road here, look. Let's just go around here. So first gear, second gear, third, well, that is actually really, really sweet to ride. There's no horrible rumble. It's really smooth, actually, considering it's a quite a big 3-cylinder engine. My 1050 Sport, well, that's a completely different kettle of fish altogether. It's a good 20 years advanced on this. Well, nearly 20 years. And we can't forget that this bike is, hold on, it's 2003 or 2004, I can't remember. So it's 20 years plus old, but it handles lovely, rides in a straight line. There's no shimmy wobble or anything like that. I can let go of the steering wheels, not a problem. And it feels nice, good riding position, and I'm really enjoying this. I did consider maybe keeping it for like a winter bike. I know that sounds like an odd thing for you guys in the UK, for example, but over here they do they go mad on the street salt in winter. Just out of interest, I put some Pirelli STR Rally tyres on, which have quite a fat profile. They are officially an 80-20 tyre, so 80% road, 20% off-road. But I don't know if it would be any use off-road, to be really honest, maybe just on gravel roads and things. This is a place called the Neue Mühle. It's a crying shame to see the state of this place now. This used to be a legendary bar and restaurant, but shut down, boarded up.
So there we go, guys. This is the Tiger, and so now these are the tyres I'm talking about. They're quite rough on their profile, and she runs absolutely lovely. Oh, there's a Scott oiler fitted to it as well, but I've actually taken it out of commission because I took the swing arm off. So if the person who buys it after me wants to put it back on, he can. Okay, so what do you think of the colour? Now what happened here was I painted it in copper, right, in a copper colour, and then what I did was I put the clear coat on when the copper was still wet. And what happened was, you can see it on the side here, is it gave it some sort of patina, sort of copper like beaten panel patina. Right then. So there we go, cruising at 50 miles an hour, 80 k's an hour, just over 3,000 revs. Temperature is low, which is nice. And I haven't actually worked out exactly how far I can get on a tank full of fuel, because I tanked it up full. I think it's 20 litres or something that goes in there, and but I used it for work commuting, so I was basically going through 3 or 4 miles each way, so about 10 miles through town traffic, which isn't representative at all. I quite like to weave in between the arrows when I'm riding my bike like this, you see, right? But I can tell you that this is literally like riding a tractor. My 1050 Sport whips through those arrows almost on its own, but this one, you do have to tell it where to go. It does feel sluggish and heavy. And talking of weight, I do believe that this weighs, I don't know, I don't have the exact figures, but once it's full of fuel, 240 kilos or something like that. So it's not a lightweight. I'm just chugging through here with about 2,000 revs, which actually is quite good, because these 3 cylinders, they're not as happy in lower revs as a 4-cylinder. But this one, you can go quite low on the revs without having to change gear. Anyway, it's I was going to say mid-September, but it's so anyway, it's the 3rd of October today, which is a bank holiday here in Germany. It's the day of it's a bank holiday here today. It's the 3rd of October, which is the day of reunification. Back in 1990, 3rd of October, the contract for reunification between the East and West Germany was signed, and since then we have a bank holiday. The wall actually fell a couple of months before, or almost a year before, on the 9th of November 1989. The Berlin Wall came down, and this pretty much wraps up this little test ride. As you can see, with the leaves, the colour, it's very much in autumn now. The summer wasn't that great, to be honest. It wasn't particularly wet or particularly long or particularly hot. It just was not particularly stable. I mean, we had a few days of rain and then maybe a nice day, and that was it. It wasn't too nice, to be honest.
So yeah, it just leaves me to say thank you very much for watching. Like and subscribe if you haven't already for more info, if you'd like to. And leave a comment. Leave a comment on what you think of the bike. Would you feel confident in doing an old project? Have you the space, the time, the guts, the nerve? Oh, and you do need nerve, because I think I swore more at this bike than any other. It was not the easiest bike to work on, I have to admit. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next project. So grab your spanners, guys, be brave, be safe. I'll see you next time.